Okay, well,
Okay. Good morning. So, typically, if one of us is leading, we don't also do communion at the same time. Like it's not usually the person who leads does communion, but that's what it is today. So I'm going to bring us into communion, and I am walking us through Matthew chapter 4. Michael was supposed to be here and doing communion and stuff, but he had a family emergency come up. So, just some extra prayers for his family would be great. But I had sent Rochelle a text this morning, and I was like, hey, I don't know if my husband updated you, but he's not going to be available. And so she was so kind and was just like, do you want to just do like the personal reflection for communion? And I said, you know what, actually, I actually had something on my heart last night, and I was trying to formulate it into words like it was something that was super like just hit my heart. It really stung my heart last night, and I thought, you know what, like, I mean, nothing is without purpose, and God lines things up the way he does for a reason. And so having the opportunity to just share it with you, because I don't think I'm alone in this thought that I had last night, especially in this group here. So I'm just going to share with you what my thoughts were last night. Um, Last night I was thinking about like what it means to truly follow God, like truly follow him, but not just his word or showing up for church on a Sunday or anything, but like actually following the nudges, right? That gut feeling that we get, our intuition, following the intuition, following his plan, his voice, like really, truly, what does that mean? And what does it look like to actually follow God? And the reason this thought came up was because last night I've had to limit myself on social media, not my time on social media because I like seeing what everybody's doing, but I've had to limit who I see on social media because I was getting really caught up in the feeling of like, why wasn't I there? Why wasn't I invited? Like I was like a 13-year-old girl who wasn't invited to a party and wanted to know why. Like, why are all my friends at a party and I'm not there? So last night I saw a post, and so it came through even with the people that I've kind of like uh limited, what I can see, it still came through on somebody else, on somebody else's thing that I saw. And I was immediately struck with just I like betrayal and abandonment and like left out, right? Like feeling like left out, like just feeling like, oh my god, like those were all my friends, like those there was 8 of them, and I know for sure that I would be there, I would have been at least invited to go, you know what I mean? And I was just like, I felt so left out. And at the risk of sounding like, oh my gosh, I've always had friends, because that's not what it is. But I've never had that feeling before, ever. I'm 41 years old and am just now experiencing what most kids go through, in elementary school, junior high, high school, when we get left out of things. I've never actually experienced that because I was always with the crowd. I was always a part of the crowd. I was always like the follower of the crowd, but things shifted when I became a follower of God, a true follower of God, not a follower of the crowd. And these are all new feelings for me. I looked at this picture and I was like, they used to be my friends. Like they used to, call me. They used to tell me they loved me. They used to tell me they were proud of me. Like they were so proud of my faith. They were proud of who I am. But the moment that I said, I hear God differently for me, like I'm hearing him totally outside of the crowd, outside of the group, they left me. They just left me. They totally abandoned me, and they changed their minds about me. So it's not even so much that they were like, okay, well, she's crazy, peace out. They just changed their mind about me, about who I am. My circle of friends, which I'm sure many of us, here can at least identify with, my circle of friends went from a really large number. My phone was always busy. I always had plans. I always had somewhere to be. Like it was just constant, right? Like just the busyness that I had. I went from this large number of invitations to a circle of people that I can maybe count on one or two hands. Maybe. I don't even think I could fill up two hands, right? Like aside from you wonderful, amazing people here, I can't fill it up. I don't even need the toes to count because I can't even fill up two hands. So last night I caught myself in this pity of like, poor me. I'm left out. I'm not a part of the group. I'm not a part of the party. I'm not a part of any of this. And I caught myself thinking, you know what, maybe it wasn't as bad as I remember. maybe it wasn't such a big deal what they were doing or how they treated Michael or the way they talked to me or the way, like maybe it wasn't as bad. Maybe my emotion is over exaggerating what actually happened. Like I started having these conversations with myself, like maybe it was me. Maybe I'm just wasn't, maybe they're right. Maybe they were right about me. Maybe they were right about, I mean, who knows, right? This is what happens when our feelings are hurt. We start justifying the way that we were treated or the way we were made to feel. And that's what was happening to me last night. But then I remembered Jesus in all of this, right? Because the world talks about the glory and the victory of the cross because it's massive. It's huge. We have grace and forgiveness because of it. So it makes sense that that's the focus when we talk about the cross. But rarely ever do we focus on what he endured beforehand. And I'm not talking the physical pain. I'm not talking the Passion of the Christ scenes, that we know so well and have ingrained in our memories, like I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the severe emotional pain that he went through before even getting to the cross, before even enduring the physical pain that he went through, long before that, the severe emotional, like just heartache he went through before actually the physical pain. Jesus was invited into homes, right? I mean, we've read those stories like, Jesus, you got to come eat at my house, right? Like he was invited into homes, he was looked to for help. People sought his words. Like they were just like, oh, I just want to hang with Jesus. Like I just want to be with this guy. He's so faithful. He's so amazing. He's so great. Have you spent time with Jesus? Let's have him over tonight, right? I mean, Jesus was the guy. Everybody wanted to be around Jesus. His closest friends told him they would never leave him. His closest friends told him that they would never deny him. They told him that they loved him so much. They were proud to be called his friends. Like he had like the ultimate like cheerleading squad behind him, right? Like he was like, people were like, hey, don't touch Jesus. Hey, I mean, he had bodyguards all around him because they were like, this Jesus is my homie, right? Like we're going to do everything to protect him because we love him so much, right? Jesus even called them his family. They became his family, right? We're familiar with that. Like when I mean, it's a, what's the quote? Like when friends become family, you know what I mean? Like we're familiar with that type of thinking, right? He chose them as his family because they understood him more than his biological family. That's why he called them his family. He actually like said, we just read it not long ago, or maybe I just read, I don't remember, but like, that like they're not my brothers and that's not my mother and my brothers. Like these people, that my friends, these are my mother and my brothers. Like this is my family. This is who I choose to be with. But when the time came for Jesus to follow God's voice and it came time to follow through with his plan and his instruction, he was alone. He was completely alone. So while he was performing miracles and working the ministry and all of this for God's kingdom and building God's kingdom and all this stuff, he was surrounded, he was applauded, he was protected, he was loved, he was needed, he was wanted. But the moment he had to truly stand for God, truly follow God, he was abandoned. They all left him. And I'm not talking about Judas, when Judas like turned him in and all that stuff. Judas was a heart issue. Judas had his own issues. He let greed speak for himself on that one. I'm not talking about Judas. We know that story, but I'm talking about the ones who wouldn't stay awake with him when he was crying out to God. I'm talking about the ones who denied him in front of others, the ones who cut off their ties with Jesus in order to protect themselves and their reputations, the ones who watched him being lied about and did nothing to defend him, the ones who knew the truth but stayed silent in their support of him, the ones who knew he was the Son of God, they knew he was doing God's work, they knew his whole purpose and his whole life was dedicated to serving God, and yet they are the ones who joined the crowd of liars. Those are the ones I'm talking about. Those are the ones we don't ever talk about when Jesus endured the cross. So Jesus, right? Once before, he could barely walk through the crowds without being reached out to, right? Like ladies are touching his cloak and you know what I mean? Like people were just coming after him. He couldn't even walk through the crowds. And yet he walked to the cross alone. Alone. Jesus was abandoned by those who said they would never leave him. He was denied by those who said they loved him, and he was left defenseless by those who claimed to know him. So last night I saw this photo of my friends, right? My friends. And I knew that had I not gone my own way, had I not done my own thing, I would have been there, or I at least would have been invited. Like, I know that. I know for a fact I would have absolutely 100% been sitting there at the table smiling with everybody with my glass of wine. Absolutely. I would have been there. I've seen friends. This is why I had to, like, kind of limit who and what I see, because I've seen photos of friends on hikes, celebrating birthdays, just having dinners together, like doing all these kinds of things. And I haven't had an invitation to join any of them in almost 2 years. And this isn't like a pity party. I'm not like, sharing this to be like, oh, poor Jen, she's not invited to parties. That's not why. I'm sharing this because we forget about what Jesus went through when he chose to actually follow God. So ever since I made that decision to follow God's plan for my life, the way I hear God, the way he speaks to me, it was an unpopular decision amongst my group of friends. It didn't match their ideals or their doctrine, the way that they believe things should be done. I was looked at as a false Christian. I was looked at as a false Christian. Some called my awakening a danger, because I chose to listen to God. Some told other people to stay away from me. Like, I was warned against. People were warned against being my friend. Like, they were told not to spend time with me. I became a liar in their eyes. I became the liar in their eyes. And that was enough to make my friends deny me. That was all they needed. They just needed to know that I was the liar. And they very quickly, I don't know her. I don't know her. Despite knowing me, knowing my purpose, my faith, my love for God, and my desire to fulfill his plans for me, they denied knowing me. There was no defense to my character or who I am. So following God's plan, the reason I share this with all of us here is because we are a small group, and following God's plan and his calling for our life individually, each one here, we all have an individual calling and plan for our lives. It can feel really, really lonely. And it can feel like might be doing something wrong, that maybe we missed the mark. Maybe we're not doing the right thing. It's made me question it on occasion. Absolutely. It's the crowds have made, or the lack of the crowds has made me question whether or not I really am doing the right thing. But then I remember Jesus, and he didn't go to the cross with crowds. He went to the cross with God. That was it. He didn't need the crowds to follow what God had planned for him. And I can guarantee, well, I can't guarantee because I don't know Jesus's mind in this moment, but I'm willing to bet that at some point when he was abandoned and alone and now enduring what he was enduring, did he ever question it? Did he ever wonder, like, am I doing the right thing? Because it feels like I'm not doing the right thing. It feels the opposite of what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going after you, God. Shouldn't there be more people around me? More people that I can impact? Why are they all gone? Why are they all leaving me? He went to the cross by himself because he went where he could hear God and not people. He went where he could feel God and not people. He went where he could live and die for God, not people. When the crowds are too big, God's voice becomes so small. Not his volume, our ability to hear him. We can't hear him the same when we're surrounded by the people and surrounded by the performance and the activities and the invitations and the selfies and all the things. God's voice gets drowned out when we're trying to listen to the crowd around us. Sometimes he needs us to be alone with him so that we can hear him. We will do more work for him when we can focus on him, when we can hear only him, and when we are not being surrounded and reached at and clawed at and, like, I need this and I need this and serve here and heal this and fix this and do this. We can't hear God. We think we're doing God's work, but he's like, hey, quiet. That's actually not my plan for you. You have your own individual plan. We can't hear him when other people are constantly reaching for us. So last night after I had like this, like, oh, this heart, it was a total stab to the heart. Like, and trust me, I've been doing work on this like you would not believe. Like Rochelle has, poor Rochelle, she has had hours of me working through these particular relationships. And last night was another sting to my heart, just that feeling of like, but that's exactly what Satan wants, right? He totally wants me to be like, oh, maybe I'm not doing the right thing. But by the time I got to bed last night, because I was thinking about Jesus, I thanked God when I went to bed for the handful of people that are in my life, not the armful, not the houseful, not the, you know, phone full of people. I thank him for the handful of people in my life because those are the ones that see God with me. And those are the ones that chase after God with me. Jesus wasn't totally alone when he went to the cross. His best friends ditched him completely. Totally were like, we don't know him, his best friends. But he had a handful of people who were there at the cross and stayed with him until the end, until it was over, until they saw the resurrection, until they're the ones who saw God's glory. That handful of people that stayed with him because they believed in him and his purpose. But more than that, they were there because they believed in God's purpose for Jesus's life and his death. So yes, they loved Jesus and they stayed with him, and they were there, I'm sure, as like, just emotional support for him, whatever they could offer to him at that time. But ultimately, they were there to see what God was going to do. Just a handful of people. That was all that was necessary. And truthfully, the handful is all that we need. We don't need the big crowds. We don't need the big invitations. We don't need to be present at every single event. And we don't need to be, look who I was with today and look who I was with yesterday and look who that actually does not mean that you have a closeness with God. It means that you have a busy schedule. And I am thankful that I am here with each of you because you are here to chase after God with me. You are here to stand at the cross with me, waiting to see what God is going to do in each of our lives. And I am so thankful for that. So that is my heart. That's where I was last night. I just wanted to share that with each of you because I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not the only one who feels that and who sees that and is hurt by that. And sometimes we just need the reminder that that's not where God is. And I love you. And Rochelle, could you pray for communion?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
God, thank you for your constant presence and reminders that you give to us. Thank you for the stillness that you provide for us that allows us to hear you. I know sometimes in my own heart, a little noise around might feel good, but I know it's not true and correct, and it crowds out your voice. So God, through the pain, through the stabs in our hearts, that we don't actually really enjoy in the moment. Let's just be honest, we don't. But God, I know you're there, and I know that you love us and you provide us those moments, those hard moments, so we can hear you, the best voice of all. Thank you for Jen's reminder. Thank you for holding her when her heart is hurt. Thank you for holding each one of us when our heart is hurt, God. How you can insert yourself into a moment that lets us see you and feel you and take a walk deeper into possibly having the slightest bit of understanding our connection to you and your situation and what you endured for us is remarkable. And the way that you can use that to help us not feel alone, to feel loved and considered and seen and important is valuable. So God, today I pray that as we take communion, that take this pause, that it infuses us with more of you, more of your spirit, more of your truth, more of your hugs during our hard times, God. I love you, and I'm so thankful that you went before me and that you went before each one of us, that when we look up and look around and can't find anyone, we can find you nice and present and there. God, I love you and I praise you, and I pray that you will continue to clean out more of me so that more of you will fit in. And let this be the start of a week that does exactly that. God, I love you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.